Well, autumn's coming along, so I thought I would cover some books that kind of capture that feeling for me. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and today I'm going to be covering BAM! Blood Standard by Laird Barron, the horror author. Excuse me. Laird Barron is one of those authors who I've wanted to try out for a while now. He's become known in cosmic horror circles, particularly of the Lovecraftian variety. He's written some short story collections that's gained a lot of love in the horror community. He's also written some horror novels, if I believe so. But I was also intrigued to see that he began writing a noir series, and considering my affinity for hard-boiled noir, I had to bite. And also, just look at this man. Look at this. Look at this man. He has an eye patch on his eye. If that does not scream hard-boiled to you guys, I don't know what will. But despite Barron's reputation as a cosmic horror writer, Blood Standard is a noir through and through. It is gritty, it is dark, it is intense, but it also has a good sense of humor that is very deadpan and very sarcastic, as is befitting a PI noir novel. But Isaiah Coleridge is not another wise-ass PI. He's almost like a modern-day Conan the Barbarian, a warrior poet who lives for the battle, who lives in a time that is not his own. It almost seems like he would feel more at home in a Robert E. Howard story rather than our modern, technologically advanced world, but by chance of fate, he just happened to be in our world. But he's the classic hitman with a heart of gold trope. But he's not a good person by any means, but he certainly has enough elements, such as his love for animals, that would send him into psychotic rages that would make even John Wick go, "God damn, dude. Chill the fuck out." But he does have enough traits in this novel that make him compelling and human despite his rough edges, such as the fact that he loves classic literature, that he is a big fan of movies, he has a difficult relationship with his dad, and it shows that he is a person at the end of the day, even though he is a psychotic murderer. Well, he's not a psychotic murderer, but he certainly isn't afraid to throw down when things get violent. Well, admittedly, this book did take a minute for me to get into because it has those kind of cliche noir witticisms and like, "Oh yeah, I saw this dame at the bar the other day," and I don't like it. I'm just not a fan of that stuff. Oh god, I'm wincing doing. I just did that. But Blood Standard improves remarkably as it moves along. The writing becomes much better, much more evocative, and if you can deal with a kind of slower opening, and if you can deal with some bullshit, it is a very good novel. It's very evenly paced. There's a lot of fun characters in this, and the characters become more complex, and the setting is very evocative. I really love how he describes the setting of where he's at, which is in New York. One of my favorite bits in the book is when Isaiah gets sick with a cold, and I just love how Laird Barron wrote it. It almost feels like you're there, you're sick alongside him, and it reminded me of all of the joys that come from having a cold. So thanks, Laird Barron, for making me experience that once again through the power of literature. But the characters of this book is really what made it shine. All of them were really well done. I thought they were believable. The characters were really interesting, I thought. None of them felt unbelievable. I mean, even though there were some of them who had the weird names, like Meg. I was particularly invested in the romance between Isaiah and Meg, and despite the fact that Isaiah's a violent man, and Meg is this kind of weird hippie. She's kind of like a circus performer, I think. I can't remember now. It's been a year. If you could tell, since I've read this the first time. But I really like the romance that blossoms between the two of them, and as Isaiah begins to make this place his new home, because he was originally in Alaska, but he had an incident that sets him to New York, and New York is where. If I remember right, that is where Laird Barron lives. But I think that is where he lives. Anyways, I'm getting off the track. But I enjoyed this. But also the mystery in this was pretty interesting. And it goes into several different directions until we get to the end, which I'm not spoiling, by the way. But what I will say is that I wasn't expecting the ending that we got, and it was a surprisingly really emotional ending. It was a really, it was one that really surprised me, and I don't get surprised very often when I read books, so, well played, Mr. Barron. I wouldn't say that this book reaches the level of modern masters like Dennis Lehane, for example. There's certainly some issues that I had with this book. My main one is that, my major one is that it seems like Barron has a bunch of these ideas that he's kind of playing around with, but he doesn't really know how to, I don't know. He doesn't really know how to implement all of those ideas and interest convincingly through the story. I mean, there's mercenaries in this. There's, like, weird, hippie, you know... Well, actually, that's another book. There's, like, this weird... There's so much stuff going... There's a lot of stuff going on in this novel. Isaiah's in trouble with his mob pals in Alaska. There's this thing with this girl who goes missing. Then there's these mercenaries that Isaiah doesn't like. He meets this one guy who used to know some people who were a part of the mercenary group. It's crazy. It's not quite as bad as some of the other installments in this series, which I will get into at another point in time, but it's certainly there. But I do find that this novel manages to not get too carried away. It manages to wrap itself up in a convincing way. I really enjoyed how it all came together. Also, the writing in this novel is very good. I mean, I didn't really think of it much at first, because, again, it kind of went... It certainly had those kind of cliche, hard-boiled, you know, witticisms that I don't love. But as the book went along, I really liked how, you know, Barron can really craft some sentences when he puts his mind to the task. I mean, you know, it's just really good stuff. Let me see if I can find some... here we go. Generally, drunkenness engenders a misapprehension of one's invulnerability. Bottled courage is the bane of Barron warriors around the globe. Not in my case. I applied it as a tranquilizer, a sacred medium between the civilized veneer and the primordial savage. Yes, a yeoman's dose of alcohol blunted my reflexes. It also relaxed my muscles and enabled me to roll with the punishment. It slowed my mind and kept me calm while the fires of violence built and built. This was a gladiatorial exhibition, nothing more. The booze helped me hold on to that idea. You know, great prose like that. There's a lot of passages like this in this novel, including one where I said blood was the standard. That's one of the passages in this novel, but I really like the prose in this. I thought Laird Barron, he's a good prose stylist. I can definitely see why people really enjoy his style, and I definitely got interested in checking out the other two books in this series that have come out so far. Now 3. There's a new one that came out this year. I might actually get it and read it for the Spoopathon this coming October, but I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think this is... I covered this because this is one of those books I think is kind of underrated. I don't really see a lot of people talking about it on YouTube. I mean, I've seen some people have some conversations. I saw Laird Barron get interviewed a couple times over this book. I know it got talked about on Lovecraft Easy, which is a good show if you guys want to watch that. It's on YouTube. You can go find it. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of people talking about this, and that's a shame because I think Blood Standard's a pretty good noir novel. It's very much a throwback to the old school noir, like Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler type of noir. You know, it definitely feels like if those guys wrote in the modern day, and it's very much of that vein. But it literally says back here, brings the spirit of Dashiell Hammett into the 21st century. Well, the News and Observer from Raleigh, North Carolina, I will not disagree with you there, because yeah, it's really good. It definitely has that old school noir vibe, and like I said, it's no Lehane, but it's definitely very good, and I do suggest that you guys read this one, if none else. The other two books are interesting. But I'll get into those at some point, and I'll let you know what I think of those, because, well, there's some interesting stuff in that. I might actually need to reread those, because there's some stuff I forgot. But Blood Standard is probably my favorite one of the Isaiah Coleridge novels so far. It's definitely the best one in my opinion. I think it's a novel that I think it's the most concise of those books. But again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and I do want to cover the other two books at some point, because there's some interesting thoughts I have on the other two. But yeah, I think that's all I got for today. This has been my cover of Blood Standard, my review of Blood Standard from Laird Barron. Check it out; it's a good book. If you're a big fan of hard-boiled noir like I am, check it out. It's fantastic. But yeah, go check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Letterboxd and Goodreads, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. And you can check me out on Discord, because, you know, I'm there. Come talk to me. I'd love to hear from you all. And check out Blood Standard. It's a good book. I mean, Nick Pizzolatto said that Nick Pizzolatto of True Detective fame, and whose book Galveston I also read this year, praised Laird Barron. So if that doesn't convince you to read Laird Barron, again, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, I'll see you guys later, and until next time.